Good afternoon on this lovely Sunday morning. You know, Jews have this remarkable connection to the Holy Land of Israel. Not just the Jews who actually live there and fight for the country, but even us Jews in the diaspora. We say every day in our prayers, may God bring us back to Zion and may He build the temple. We pray the Shana Abba B'Yerushalayim. All our prayers are eastward. So wherever we are in the world, we're praying towards Jerusalem because our love is ingrained in our DNA and who we are as Jews. But where does it start from? You know, in this week's Torah portion, we have a double Torah portion, and we finished the book of Numbers. And in this week's Torah portion, we read about 2.5 tribes, Reuven, Gad, and half of Manasseh, that come to Moses. Moses is about to pass away. The Jews are on the cusp of going into the Holy Land of Israel. And they say, you know, Moses, we are fine to stay on the Trans-Jordan, the other side of the Jordan. We're not going to go into Israel, and we'll make our land here, and this is where will we settle. And originally, Moses gets very worried and frustrated. He says, are you kidding me? Don't you remember what happened nearly 40 years ago when when the spies said we don't want to go into Israel? And how upset God was? God gave us this land. Why would you not want to go? And they say, no, we don't want to not go. We'll go, we'll fight, we'll help conquer it, we'll help settle it. But we will live on this side. And the rabbis discussed this at length. What was the goal and what was the motives of God and Reuven and half of Manasseh? Was it just because it was more fertile ground for their cattle? And throughout the years, I've spoken many commentaries to you, and I'm sure we'll do it this week again. But there's one remarkable, moving commentary that I think connects to the Jewish passion and love for Israel that's embedded in our DNA. God, Reuven, and half of Manasseh, these 2.5 tribes, recognized and realized that throughout our long history, there will be Jews that will merit to live in the Holy Land of Israel, and there were Jews that will be living in the diaspora. And as we've seen throughout our long exile, even before, there were Jews living all over the world. And what God and Manasseh and Reuven wanted to do is, they wanted to make and forge that connection, that deep soul connection between Jews in the diaspora in Israel. They didn't want that Jews in the diaspora should feel that they're part of another country, that it's not their country. But they wanted that every single Jew should feel the love, the intensity, the care for Israel. We pray for Israel every day in our prayers. We say a prayer for the IDF, like in our Shul Chabad at Chesterfield, every Shabbat, to pray for their safekeeping and for them to protect our land. We think about the Jews, we support it, we go to visit, etc., etc. And the truth is that Grunie and I are very honored and lucky that in the middle of August we will be traveling again with our family to Israel for 2 weeks, a little under 2 weeks, to celebrate and to nurture and to continue forging that relationship, that connection that the 2.5 tribes told Moses they want to instill within the Jewish people. You know, I read this remarkable story about this couple from California, from LA, that a couple of years ago they went to Herzliya. They were in Israel, and they go into a restaurant. It's called, I think, Meat and Bread. I don't remember the name exactly, but the point is they go and they're seated, and then they decide they want to sit upstairs. And the wife turns to her husband and says, you know, maybe we could go sit upstairs. And she says, fine. So they ask the waiter. The waiter says, no problem. They move them upstairs. And then as they seated upstairs, there's a new waiter that comes over to them, introduces them, and says, hi, my name is Barak. Whatever you need, please let me know, and I'm here to serve you and make sure you have the greatest evening. As he walks away, the wife turns to the husband and says, 1 second, I wonder what this kid Barak's name is, mother's name is. So the husband calls back this guy Barak and says, Barak, what's your mother's name? He says, my mother is Orna. Barak ben Orna. And the woman looks at him and says, 1 second, did you fight in Protective Edge in 2014 in the Gaza when Israel went into Gaza to protect and safekeep the Jewish people? And he says, yes, I was there. She says, were you injured there? And he says, yes, how do you know? And she says, well, back then, in 2014, there was this organization that called people all over the world and posted in ways that to connect Jews in the diaspora and the Jews in Israel, asking them, would you take the name of a particular soldier who was injured and pray for him every day? And families took names. And I agreed to take the name, and the name they gave me was Barak ben Orna. And what I did was, I put the name near my coffee cabinet where the mugs are and the coffee, And like this, every day when I came, I would see the name Barak Ben Orna, and I would pray some psalms and pray for his healing. And this went on for years. And she says, I promise you, just 2 weeks ago, I was sitting in my home, and I was praying to God, and I went to get coffee, and I was praying for you, Barak Ben Orna, and then I thought to myself, God, please, I would love to see, how's he doing? It's already been a few years. How is he? Is he alive? I would love to meet him. And here God answered my prayers. I come to Herzliya, and I meet you, this soldier that I've been praying for years. And they forge this connection, they exchange emails, and a couple of weeks later, this couple from LA gets an email from Barak, and he says, I just want you to know, I was so touched by our meeting, and knowing that someone all the way in Los Angeles was praying for me every day. They never met me, they didn't know me. I was across the world in Israel, 15-hour flight, 16-hour flight, and yet they were praying for me every day. That what I did was, I took out my tefillin that I haven't worn since my bar mitzvah, and I dusted them off, and I put on tefillin. And I plan to do this every day, because if a Jew in LA could be praying for me, then shouldn't I be praying myself? That's what God, Menashe, and Reuven saw. They saw this idea that Jews in the diaspora need to have this bond, this connection, this soul connection to the Jews in Israel. And they said, we'll live on the other side, on the Trans-Jordan, to begin that relationship where Jews in the diaspora shouldn't feel that Israel is not theirs, they don't belong, but it's their country just as it's every other Jew's country. And that's why we are lucky to be able to pray for Israel every day, and to visit Israel every day, and to cherish it and embrace it. And Grunie and I are so excited to go again to Israel this summer, and to be able to share our experience with you and help you connect and forge your relationship with the Holy Land of Israel. God bless you and have a great day.